Hey everyone, this is Aaron Johnson with the Johnson iRacing team. I had a request a couple of days back to give a little bit of a tutorial on how we make matte or flat finished paint schemes. It's a variation on a theme, so I'm going to show you how to do that. And at the same time, I'm going to show you how I approach making the spec layers so that you can have multiple types of finishes. So that you could have a flat paint, but then you could have a gloss lettering, or maybe even a metallic lettering, and then gloss for the decals and things like that. So that's what I'm going to try to show you today, and I'm going to do my best to do that. We're going to be working in paint.net as I usually do, and I've got pulled up here a paint scheme that I've already been working on. It's an AMD Ryzen Radeon scheme that I was working on for the Johnson iRacing team. What I thought I would do is I would show you how to make a matte finish. The thing to remember here is that a spec layer works in the red, green, blue color space. Now the blue's kind of ignored, so red and green are your key values. And if you come down here to your color wheel, you've got the three colors, red, green, blue, and black is an absence of all of them. So if you use a spec map that is purely black, it will be a standard gloss paint scheme. So iRacing will make no changes. Trading paints will make no changes. Your car or truck or whatever it is, your Legends car that you've painted, you're modified, it's going to come out with a gloss paint scheme. But if we start to make a spec layer, and we make that spec layer using either red or green or a combination of the two, we're going to get some different finishes on our paints. And today, we're going to focus on giving you that matte paint scheme. So we're going to start out by going to and turning on the layer that I've chosen to use as the spec map for the matte. Remember that with with paint.net, this tower of different layers that's on the right side that I'm scrolling through is in order. So this layer would be the topmost layer, and this layer would be the bottommost layer. So when I turn them on or off, we may or may not see them. For example, the blue base, we don't see it because it's hidden underneath the green base. But if I shut the green base off and turn the blue base back on, then we can see that blue base. Or I can turn the blue base off and go with electric blue, or turn that electric blue off and go back with my base green. And that's important because when we get ready to save our layers to be able to use them later on to make our paints visible, one of the things we have to remember is that we've got to have all the layers turned on that we want to show up on that screen. So I'm going to go up here to what I call the spec matte tutorial layer, and I'm going to turn that on and make it visible. And right now it's black. But what I want is I want to practice making a flat paint scheme. So I'm going to turn this to 255 green. That's as bright green as I can make it. And I'm going to use my paint bucket. And since this is in the primary position, that's going to be my left mouse button. So I'm going to click my left mouse button. I'm going to fill this in. Now I'm going to hit File. I'm going to go Save As. And I want to save this as a TGA. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it in my Alienware paint scheme for now. That's how this started. It ended up being a Ryzen scheme. So, you never know what's going to happen when you start out working on one scheme and it morphs into something else. But I'm just going to call this Tutorial Matte Spec. Okay? And I'm going to save it as a TGA. You're going to go ahead and hit OK here. And when it says flatten, you're going to go ahead and flatten it. And you'll notice that all the layers over here on the right side have disappeared. So you want to make sure you hit undo. That way all your layers come back. But the file that you just saved is still going to be there. So the undo button doesn't undo saving the file. It just undoes the last action in this program in paint.net. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that folder. And for me, I'm going to click on the folder icon. And I keep this under Desktop and then iRacing Paints. And then I'm under Gander 150 and I'm in Alienware. And what I want is I want the base number, that's the Team 00 base I've been working on, and I want the tutorial mat spec. And I'm going to copy those. You can right click. So the way you highlight these, just so you understand, we'll go back here. The way you highlight these is you can click on this one, then you can hold the control button and click on a second one. If you hold shift, it'll do everything in between. You don't want to do that. So click on one, then hold the control button, click on the second one. Then you can right click and hit copy. You can also use Control C. That will also copy. Now once you've done that, you've got to go to your Documents folder. You've got to find iRacing. You've got to find Paint. You have to find F-150. So here's Trucks Ford F-150. We're going to delete what's in there right now. And we're going to hit Paste. That's right-click Paste, or you can do Control V. All right? Now, we still have to rename these. All right? I'm going to rename this car underscore num underscore 522997. If you've been following along on our channel, you know that num, using that num value, tells Trading Paints that you have a custom number. In this case, it's 00. And the 522997 is your iRacing customer number. You can look back in a couple of other videos and we'll show you how to find that number. It was in the original email they sent you, and it will show up if you go into one of your past results. It's going to show up in your past results as your number. So we're going to change that to car underscore num underscore 522997, and we need to rename this car underscore spec underscore 522997. And once we've done that, we should be able to go look at our truck and see what it looks like. So we can go to My Content. We'll scroll down until we see the Camping World F-150, and we'll go to Car Model. It should load up the paint that we just uploaded. All right, so what you can see now is this is a very flat paint. Right, there's no shine anywhere. So if we go 100% green, 255, we're going to show up with an absolutely flat paint scheme that doesn't shine, glitter, or reflect at all. So if you wanted to go with a true flat finish, you go 255 green, 0 red, 0 black. Now suppose that we really didn't want it to be perfectly flat. We could drop this. Instead of 255, we could make it 155. Now to do that, I put my cursor in this box, I held the left button down, and I just selected it. And then I went to my number pad on my keyboard and I just typed 155. So we'll go back in here. We'll make sure that we've got our paint bucket selected. Oh, did you see what my mistake was? I had the wrong layer selected. So down here you can see that I made my end layer group green. We don't want that. So we're going to hit undo. Nice thing about Trading Paints, we've got to make sure that the layer we want to work in is the one that's highlighted in our stack over here to the right. Now we're ready, and we can go ahead and left click. And we're going to hit File. We're going to hit Save As. We're going to make sure we save it as a TGA. We're going to save it as the matte spec layer. We're going to click Yes here because we do want to replace it. We'll click OK. We do want to flatten it. And we just want to remember that we're going to undo that last action so we get all of our layers back. Okay. We're going to come back over here. We're going to go to our desktop, iRacing Paints. We'll go to Gander F-150. We were working in Alienware. We're going to right click on the matte spec, and that'll allow us to copy it. Then we go back to Documents, iRacing, Paint, Trucks Ford F-150. We need to delete both of these files. So we've got to delete both of the files that have spec in the title. So we're going to delete those, and then we're going to paste the file that we just copied. That's Control V or right click paste, either one. And we'll just replace it. It's the same thing. Remember, we have to rename that file. That was going to be car underscore spec underscore 522997. Now when we come back and look, we should see that we've got a little bit of shine here. It's not great, but you can see that it's a little shinier than it used to be, right? Not perfect, but not perfectly flat. Now, what if I kind of like that. I kind of like it to have a little bit of shine. It makes that green really bright, almost poisonous. But what if I want these gray stripes to be shiny? Well, I'm going to need to put those into my spec map. Now I'm going to turn off this layer. I'm going to tell you a little bit about making a spec map. When you make a spec map, you work from the bottom layer to the top. Now we just made this green base completely flat, right? We set it at 155. It's not perfectly flat, but it's flat enough. Next we want to see what layer do we want to do anything. I've got this alt black layer. So this is this group of paints. Do I want that to be shiny? You know, I think I might. I think I might want that to be shiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. I'm going to use the magic wand. I'm going to use shift, and then I'm going to select that. And you'll see that everything on that layer now has been selected. Okay, this is my alt black layer. And I really want this to be shiny. I don't want it to be chrome. I just want it to be glossy. So I need to go into my spec layer and I need to paint this black. So I'm going to highlight it and turn it on so I can see it. And I'm going to get out my paintbrush and I'm just going to paint all that stuff black. That's the left button because black is primary. I'm just going to hold the left button down and everywhere inside those outlines is magically going to get painted black. It's the Rolling Stones. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and hit File. I'm going to hit Save As. I'm going to save it as a TGA again. And I'm going to use the tutorial matte spec. Because as I work up from the bottom, I'm going to be changing all of these layers so that they have the finish that I want. We're going to hit Yes. We're going to hit OK. We're going to tell it to flatten. We're going to remember to undo. Now we're going to go back to our folder. We're going to go to Desktop, iRacing Paints, Gander F-150, Alienware, and now we're going to copy the tutorial matte spec. Then we'll go to Documents, iRacing, Paint. We're just double clicking every time. Trucks Ford F-150. Remember, we have to delete both spec files. We're going to right click and paste our spec file. Car _ spec _ 522997. Okay. And now let's go look at our truck. All right. So we've got a little shine in the green paint. You can just see a little shine right here. We've also got a little shine on these layers. I want the silver to be kind of chromium. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these silver stripes right here into something that's kind of chromium plated. So to do that, I got to go back up here. I got to turn off my spec layer. I've got to find that layer that has the silver stripes on it. Okay, now I've named this Alt Silver. If you shut it off, you see all those silver stripes disappear. See that? So what we want to do is we're going to go to that Alt Silver layer. We're going to use our selection tool, the magic wand, and we're going to put it over one of those stripes. We're going to hit the Shift button. And if we hit the Shift button and hit one of those stripes, our tolerance is too high. So we have to have our tolerance down around 70. That's going to select all of those stripes. Make sense? Great. Now we're going to turn this off, and we're going to go back up here to the spec matte tutorial. Turn that on. Now, if we're making chrome, we want things to be shiny. We want them to be red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, you know what, let's just make it 100% red. And now I'm going to use my paintbrush, left click because that is the primary color. We're going to come in here and it's going to paint all of this stuff that is inside the dotted lines. It's going to paint it all red. All right. Now remember, we have to save again, so we're going to go File, Save As, TGA, Tutorial Matte Spec. Yes, we want to replace. That's okay. We want to flatten. Then we want to undo. Okay, then we're going to go back over here to the iRacing folders. We're going to go to Desktop, Paints, Gander F-150, Alienware. We're going to grab the new copy of the spec map. We're going to hit right click and copy. Then we're going to go to Documents, iRacing, Paint, F-150. Remember, we're going to delete this. Oh, our spec didn't work last time. Let's take a look at this really quick, because that didn't work. That might explain why it was a little flat. So let's go back and take a look now that that's fixed. Yeah, so you get a little better idea. You can see the shininess in that Radeon stripe. So you can see a little shine to it that you don't see otherwise. All right, so I made a mistake there. We're going to delete these two though. Now that we've done that, then we're going to hit paste. So right click and paste. Remember, we have to rename this. We're going to name it car underscore spec underscore 522997. Right? And iRacing magically makes this extra file for us. And now we're going to take one more look. And see, now you can see that it's really changed these layers. See how these are all chrome? They're all foil looking, right? And they really stand out. So what we would need to do is we would need to continue to make our spec map, because these layers are underneath this Ryzen layer. And I don't like that. So let's see if we can't, we'll fix the Ryzen layer quick, and then you can see how that will work, and we'll call that good. So let's turn our spec map off one more time. Now Ryzen is our sponsor layer. So if we turn the sponsor layer off, you see that Ryzen disappears. So what I really want here is I want all the Ryzen lettering. I want it to be the same color as the truck. So we're going to select all the Ryzen lettering. We're going to come up here and we're going to go back to our spec map. We're going to turn it on. And remember, we want this to match the paint. So we're going to use our color picker. That's this little eyedropper. And we're going to pick this green. Then we're going to use our brush. And we're just going to fill in where Ryzen is. And where Radeon is. And where AMD is. And what that's going to do is that's going to make all of those colors flat again. And that's really what we want. So we're going to save this layer one more time. We're going to go to File, Save As, TGA, Tutorial Matte Spec, Save. Yes, we want to overwrite. Okay, we do want to flatten, but we do want to undo. Last time. We're going to come back over here. We're going to go to Desktop, iRacing Paints, Gander F-150, Alienware. We're going to grab the new copy, so we're going to right click and copy this. Then we'll go to Documents, iRacing, Paint, Trucks, F-150. Remember, we have to delete both. Then we'll right click, paste. Now we have to rename car underscore spec underscore 522997. Come back over here, and now we can see that Ryzen is gorgeous, and it's sitting on top of this sort of foil, dark gray foil color. Okay. Now we can do the same thing for every layer of the truck. See how those lines are going through the 00? We don't want that. So we can go back and we work our way from the bottom to the top, right? So we did the alt black, alt silver. There's a green stripe. We probably should do it before we do sponsors. Then we should do the dirt layer. Then we should do the name layer. So every time we're going to look at those layers and ask ourselves, what finish do we want? I'll give you a couple of examples here without doing them. So the green stripe, let's turn that off and back on. So the green stripe is this little narrow stripe that goes right down the center of the truck. We would want to make that flat. So we'd want to highlight that and paint that back to the bright green. Sponsor layer. We just did that. That's Radeon. We took care of all that. The dirt layer, that's the Johnson iRacing team here and here. And that should also include the Ramey Johnson Memorial decal. Okay, so we'll want to figure out what we want to do with that. The Johnson name layer, that is my name. That was right over the door. And so we would just work our way from the bottom to the top, and at each layer we would ask ourselves, should it be gloss? Should it be a shiny finish? Should it be almost a metallic finish? Or should it be matte? And at each step of the way, we would select those items, and we would go back up here to the spec map, and we would color them accordingly. The most common mistake is to color them, but to not color them in on the spec map. I hope that helps. I hope it's something that you all can use and that you can use to become better painters. If you have any questions at all, as always, hop into the chat here on YouTube or reach out to us on our Facebook page. That's the Johnson iRacing team. We'll be happy to help you out as much as we possibly can. For the Johnson iRacing team on the Johnson iRacing Network, this is Aaron Johnson saying, go fast, turn left, have fun.